Stop trying to bring the 2000s back. Please. Oh my goodness. Stop. This diet culture has gone beyond the damage that the Atkins diet created back then, and is now impacting medicines that people actually need to take in order to be able to survive. I hate this timeline so very much. So in case you don't know, Ozempic is a medication which is given to people who deal with type 2 diabetes as a way to be able to regulate their blood sugar in order for them to, be able to actually live their lives. But the thing is, it has additional properties which have been kind of being used by the rich, by people that can get it that don't necessarily need it, in order for them to look a certain way and to shed some pounds very quickly. Of course, if any of the topics that I'm bringing up are triggering to you in this video, because this is all about weight loss, there are resources in the description box, because I definitely know that it's important to keep that stuff in check. So yeah, I want to make sure that you're okay. And yes, I will also be monitoring the comment section of this video as well, because we're not here for fat phobia, we're not here for body shaming. Okay, great. This is actually causing short supply for the people that actually need the medication in order to be able to survive. So, who do you think is going to get the priority? The rich and famous who want to look a certain way, or the people that need it in order to be able to survive? What kind of hellscape timeline are we living on? This video could very easily turn into a slanderous piece, calling people vain and all of that, but this is actually a bigger topic, as I spoke about in my BDD and plastic surgery video, of the amount of pressure that's actually put on people to appear certain ways, and how this is having a debilitating impact, and how it's meaning that our priorities are becoming entirely skewed as a society. The trend is actually heading backwards more towards the 2000s. We've seen the 2000s fashion come back, we've seen everything to do with the 2000s become nostalgic again, even though the fact it's like 20 years ago, which kind of makes my brain spin a little bit, but at the same time we did that with the 80s and the 2000s, so who am I to talk? But the thing is that the body types have gone from this curvaceous look, which was mostly aided by surgery, to now being this very slim look. Eliminate the thick, it's just about slim. And because of these pressures, it means that people are expected to look certain ways again, which is what's leading to more extreme diets, more extreme fads, and even to the point of taking medication, which is quite terrifying to me, honestly. Capitalism is more than happy to profit off medicine, as it has done many times, because the highest bidder matters most when the objective is making money, right? So let's talk about this medication. So Ozempic is the brand name of semaglutide, just one of the many drug classes known as incretins, an insulin-regulated drug developed by Danish pharmaceutical giant Novo Nordisk in order to help people manage their type 2 diabetes. And there's also a higher dose of semaglutide called Wegovy, which was also created by Novo Nordisk, started trending when Elon Musk said the once weekly injectable was his secret weapon for looking fit, ripped and healthy. Let that sink in. So a semaglutide, as a medication, needs to be taken by those who are prescribed it. It's specifically designed for people who live with type 2 diabetes to help control their blood sugar levels. So in case you're unaware, there is a difference between the two types of diabetes. This is broad strokes here. Type 1 diabetes is a genetic condition that often shows up early in life, and type 2 is mainly lifestyle related and develops over time. With type 1 diabetes, your immune system is attacking and destroying the insulin producing cells in your pancreas. Type 1 affects about 8% of the population, whereas type 2 affects about 90% of the population. This is all from Diabetes UK website, by the way. That's where I've got my facts from. I'm not a medical professional. I am not in any way trained. That's why I'm just turning to the expert resources for this. So there is no cure for type 1 diabetes, and with type 2, people can go into remission, not a full cure, through things like a change in diet, through medication and exercise, etc. I am again oversimplifying this very broadly. I just wanted you to be able to have a bit of an understanding as we head into this topic. Both types of diabetes are actually dangerous and genuine medical conditions which do require support. However, these new treatments, which have got an FDA approval, like Wegovy for weight loss, they directly take from the supply that's needed for people who suffer from diabetes. Because it's become such a sudden trend, the demand is outweighing the supply. It's being platformed by people on TikTok, by celebrities, by all sorts, because this is the new easy way to lose weight. which is a very dangerous thing in my books. So this has created an unfortunate dichotomy. The well-off can afford the $1,200 to $1,500 per month price tag of Ozempic and get it legally prescribed off-label from their doctor. So for reference, I actually looked this up online in America, so how much Ozempic actually costs for those with diabetes if you have insurance. So it can cost about $25 a month. This is very broad strokes. I don't live in America. I just wanted to check the price difference. So you have $1,200 to $1,500 a month, which people can pay in order to be able to get this medication when they don't necessarily need it, or about $25 for those who have insurance who need it. When you just look at that price comparison, who do you think people would want to prioritize when you can make more money off it? I mean, come on. I know that people pay insurance premiums and everything. I've worked at an insurance company, like, I get it. Who gets better treatment when you go to a hospital? Just saying. We've had people on TikTok who have been documenting their weight loss using the hashtag Ozempic, which has garnered over 74 million views, and this is from an article from 4 months ago from The Guardian, so I'm sure it's in the 100 millions now. It's become a huge problem, everyone jumping on this bandwagon. The insurance companies are refusing to cover this for anyone who is not diabetic. It's led to panic. Pharmacists have units on back order through December, says Hollywood nutritionist Matt Mahowald in this Variety article. And one woman in a New York suburb tells of another woman who underwent, quote, a total transformation, unquote, in the course of a year. It was the talk of the town. We were all marveling that she was wasting away, and we meant that as a compliment, of course. Because nothing is more important than looking a particular way when it comes to this society, in particular the pressure on women, which I've raised so many times in my videos. Wegovy as a weight loss prescription is meant to be given to people who have a BMI over 30, and BMI is complete bullshit. BMI is complete BS. Books have been written about this, people have talked about this many times, experts have talked about this, but hey, we still want to listen to a white guy who had no idea what he was talking about in what, like the 19th century? That makes sense. Cool. Like I said, I'll be watching the comment section here. The thing is that the people who are actually taking this medication don't even need it because they're not even of that weight category to be able to actually need it for weight loss. It's simply being used as a way to get slimmer to achieve this unrealistic body standard which people need help with to be able to reach in a lot of cases because, hey, all bodies are different, but no, only one body type is allowed when it comes to beauty. What doesn't get talked about as much is the side effects of this, which include nausea, vomiting, stomach cramps, diarrhea, which also has pancreas and gallbladder risks amongst many others. As someone who has just dealt with all of these side effects because of a medication that I was on for over a month, I can tell you it was awful pain. I did not feel like a human at all, but because I do have an ED history, that meant that in my little mind, because I was losing weight on this, because I couldn't eat physically, I was struggling to be a human at all, but in my mind I was also like, oh, I'm losing weight because of this. I don't care if I feel like terrible. When I say I did not feel human, I genuinely didn't because I was so sick, but I was losing weight. So that's really important, right? Because that is our standard of beauty that must be met at all times, because weight loss is always seen as a good thing regardless of whether people are actually really sick in order to get to that point. So to me, at least as someone who has dealt with those side effects, it's a really toxic mindset that people can fall into because you're like, oh, I'm really sick, but look at the results. So these people that are taking this are dealing with side effects, possibly. Not everyone deals with them. I know that my body is very reactionary, but to think that they're dealing with this, but then they're like, oh, everyone's praising me for losing weight. It's a really toxic thing, and I don't like it one bit. Because the thing is that we've all been taught that this is the goal because of diet culture. Okay, let's get into it. The diet culture and people believing that health is only represented by how people look, with a very ableist and colonial view, honestly, of a slim, able-bodied young person. This is the image of health, and if you vary from this at all, there's something wrong with you. People treat others who don't fit into this narrow little mold here as different, sometimes even as less than human. When people stray from this, whether it's due to living with a disability, to looking differently, the reactions can range from double takes to invasive questions, to prejudice, also even to infantilization, and of course, shaming. And I think a lot of us have dealt with this sort of shaming in the past. A lot of us deal with this shaming now. There was a common notion throughout the years, in particular from like the 50s onwards, that shaming someone into losing weight was a good thing to do because you're doing it, quote, for their health, not actually because it's fat phobia and you are just doing this as a form of bullying. Diet culture has taken on so many forms throughout the years. You've had like the wine diet, the cigarette diet, celery juice cleanses, the Atkins diet, any cleanse of that sort of detox variety, honestly. It's been a part of our lives whether we want it to be or not, because we are surrounded by this messaging and then also showing things like hamburgers at the same time. Because that makes sense. Diet culture has been called into question because of things like social media, meaning that people can actually connect their ideas a lot more easily. People actually have connections which are outside of what the media was typically presenting to us previously, because our lives used to be ruled by magazines, by these particular media juggernauts telling us what to think. I mean, granted, we are dealing with a lot of filter bubble issues and all sorts of issues like that, but we do actually have a lot more people able to communicate with each other, and then they're sharing their issues with diet culture, they're sharing their issues with fat phobia, and we are able to actually break down barriers because of that, because of this dialogue that is actually possible through this, and through the sharing of resources. I would say from about 2015 onwards, we've had people actually go on a bit of a learning journey, more in a collective spirit. There were definitely people previously that were talking about this, but in terms of like a little bit more general acceptance about not having such narrow margins for what health is. However, there's still sadly a vocal majority of people who still uphold the visual standard of, quote, health, and lash out against people who are trying to put fat phobia into question by saying that they're platforming obesity, unhealthy lifestyles, they're being bad role models, etc, 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 whatever other bullying stuff, because that's actually what this is. It's just online harassment and bullying that often happens to people, because I follow people in this space and I see it all the time. Like, we've seen it even with Jordan Peterson, who bullied someone and then got all butthurt about the fact that he was being called out for that and ran away from Twitter for a time. The thing is that all of this is the same way that we've been taught for generations of how to treat people who are different, to shame them into conformity. You know, it's kind of like lovely hegemony is what we're after. A wonderful shade of beige for everyone. Still living in a panoramic, but most people have actually foregone masks now. People aren't really being as careful anymore. Everyone wants to go out and party. And that means that because we were in lockdowns and a lot of people were inside, gasp, some people gained weight during that time, and that is, of course, in this society, the worst thing that you could do. So now we've got people that are worrying about it and trying to eat clean, and we are seeing this rise in this very toxic mindset that is really reminding me a lot of the 2000s. Again, why I made that trilogy, because it wasn't a good time. So now that people can more easily compare themselves to each other, people are having photos taken of themselves now. And we've had these 2000s trends come up in fashion, which don't really work for body types unless you are slim. It's one of the reasons that if you saw last week's video of the outfits I want, there weren't really many from the 2000s, because you can't wear them unless you're skinny, and I've never been skinny. So it's never really been a thing that I could pull off personally. And so with that pressure on me, someone that can still fit into straight size things, how is that for everybody else? So this is, of course, leading to a lot of very dangerous things. And then we also have Kim Kardashian, who is a body influencer. It's a weird phrase to even think of Kim Kardashian as being a body influencer, but she really is. It's been her picture that has been one of the most used when it comes to plastic surgeons, when it comes to body and face. So that's quite an issue. But now, after what she did with the Met Gala, where she lost 13 pounds in 3 weeks in a dangerous way in order to fit into the most famous woman in America's dress, which got ruined, thanks Ripley's, she still hasn't gone back to her old size. So now she is skinny, and we've also seen this whiteification of influencers now, because borrowing from others' cultures is no longer fashionable. So with all of these pressures to fit an even narrower standard, you can understand why people are wanting to find different ways to be able to get about this. So I do understand why this trend has taken an uptick on TikTok and stuff to find a medication that can actually help people lose weight. Despite all of those side effects that I listed before, I can get it. And I do have sympathy for these people because we are definitely in a place and time still, sadly, where looks are the most important thing, but looks of a certain variety. Well, when I say variety, I really do mean variety are the most important thing. There are actually some fantastic nutritionists and dietitians who I follow on Instagram that I will link for you down below, by the way. This is the Instagram reel that I watched, which actually sparked me to want to look into this topic further. I'll have the Instagram linked for you down below. I really do recommend that you follow it. Diet culture is now morphed into this individual path of enlightenment, where people are preaching about health when it's not really about that. It's about looks. Which leads me on to capitalism and medicine. An unholy and inescapable marriage. In order to do research for things that can save lives and make people's lives actually improve, scientists have to basically beg for funding, beg for money. And I work with scientists, granted it's in a kind of different field, but in order to get funding, you have to gather a group together. You have to go into this bidding process, which takes months, is incredibly litigious and lengthy, and a lot of the times you're not even successful. And hello, Mannix.
Yes, you sharpen your claws.
So scientists put in all of this work and then they aren't always successful in order to get the funding. Being a scientist is basically like going out with your cap all the time trying to get money to do something that you think will help make a difference. It's not really about the money. Sure, ego comes into it, same as it does for a lot of jobs, honestly, but it's not really about making millions of dollars off creating penicillin, for example. That's not really the goal of scientists. Pharmaceutical companies, however, are a bit of a different beast. Now, this isn't me attacking Big Pharma at all. This is just saying that pharmaceutical companies have wonderful abilities to be able to set things in place so that, say for example with the COVID vaccine, how that wasn't accessible to a lot of people because people didn't really want to let go of that precious IP. To me personally, if people need something to be able to survive, they should be able to have access to it. I know I'm a dirty socialist. Oh my goodness, I'm so radical thinking that people should, you know, be able to live and not have to pay through the nose in order to be able to do it. My god, what a heathen I am. When it comes to a classic villain, you may recognize this face. Martin Shkreli. He was the CEO of Retrofin and he bought an old rare disease drug called Thiola and raised the price by 2,000%. In 2015, he moved on to this company called Turing Pharmaceuticals and bought another old drug and boosted the price by 5,000%, immediately hiking the price from $13.50 per pill to $750 per pill. He's in jail now, by the way, serving a 7-year sentence and is no longer allowed to be involved in pharmaceuticals in any way. But the fact of the matter is that he was able to do this, and he is our onceler. And it's very easy to actually target all the hate at him, but we still have systems in place that are able to make a lot of money off anyone whose body doesn't function like a perfect machine, because again, this is capitalism, so if there's any faults with you, then that means that you have to pay for those faults because you're the problem. It's not up to others to look after you, it's not up to the government to help you actually survive, because that's too socialist. You need to be punished for the fact that your body that you were born with is broken. Great, thanks. But of course, some of these drugs can be useful for other people who don't necessarily need them, like Ozempic and Wegovy, for a vanity project. And this works perfectly when it comes to capitalism. This is a trend that we've seen rise with the adoption of a medication which is meant to save lives to be used as a vanity project, and it's honestly worrying. Also because the pressure to look a certain way is not changed even after all of these years. The pressure is so high that people are happy to take from others that need it in order to be able to fit this tiny little narrow mold. And that's the kind of dystopia that I don't really want to live in, honestly. Let's move on to my final thoughts, because as we know, I don't know if you keep up with climate news, but the future's looking pretty grim, okay? In all honesty, very grim. So when we look ahead to 2040, for example, which is not that far away, we'll be at 1.5 degrees, it's been predicted. Not guaranteed, that predicted, and the predictions so far have kind of been coming true. And as we see the climate crisis get worse and more extreme, we're just going to see more examples of this. To me, what's happening here with this medication issue is a bit reflective. It's like a micro example of what's going to be a macro problem. Yes, absolutely, we've had people in the global south be left abandoned multiple times. It's been very well documented. And then you've got people like me that are living in richer places, just able to carry on with our life. But what's going to be happening is on a complete global scale. What happens when people aren't able to grow their food anymore? What happens when people aren't able to access food? What happens when there are severe water shortages? Because what we're seeing right now is the rich again being prioritized. What's even being said now that I've been seeing is people saying, well, if you know it's going to be dangerous to live there, why don't you just move? As if that is a very easy thing for people to be able to do. What's going to happen when we have climate refugees that need to actually flee their countries because they can't live there anymore, because they can't actually grow their food, or it's been cut off, destroyed, you know, everything's actually happening to make life unsustainable for them. What's going to happen then? Because I know that here in Aotearoa, we're going to be needing to actually accept in a lot of people in the future. And with how right-leaning a lot of the politicians are becoming now, it does worry me a lot, because we've got this increasingly selfish mindset. Again, this is why I want to make that video about individualism versus community, and that exact issue of how we've been taught to think in this hyper-individualistic scale as being the best thing to do, when in fact it will be not very helpful at all. Honestly, we need quite a bit of change. So at least to me personally, I do have some issues with this. Once the supply and demand are actually level, then that will be okay. But it still worries me a lot with the fact that we've got people that feel that they need to take this medication and feel sick with it in order to be able to look a certain way. It's a very skewed priority level when people need to take this medication in order to be able to live with their type 2 diabetes. It's incredibly different needs, and for me personally, I think that the shortage should be prioritizing those people. But hey, I don't control anything. I can only voice my opinion and let you know what's happening. So I would love to hear your thoughts on this. If you don't know what else to say, but you enjoyed this video and made it all the way to the end, please leave the magnifying glass emoji. I think there's one of those, or the one with the dude that's wearing the little monocle thing and like, investigating, because I think it's really important for us to actually look at these examples and see how it applies to a macro scale. I like to do that sort of stuff. I like to see the bigger picture and patterns and things, so that's the ENFJ in me, I know. But anyway, I'm really keen to hear your thoughts on this. If you want a bit of a pick-me-up, watch last week's video. Next week's video will be part 2 on Buffy. I did a poll on here, and this was a neck and neck race the whole time. I was working on 2 scripts at the same time because I didn't know which one was gonna win. But I prioritized this one because afterwards we're gonna be talking about the hatred of the word like. I definitely still want to make that video, same as I still want to make the art and capitalism video. So yes, don't worry, those videos are coming as well. It was such a close race, okay? Anyway, thank you lovers so much. I really do appreciate it. You have a wonderful day. Take care of yourselves. I didn't want to come up with such a sad video on my birthday, but welcome to hell, I guess.